White House advisors and top congressional Democrats, they're expected to meet today at the negotiating table. What they need to do is hammer out the next round of COVID relief legislation. But it's not looking that great. The group has met 6 times within the last week. No progress is being made. The bill is stalled. A major sticking point for both sides is what to do about extending that added $600 federal unemployment benefit, which expired. It expired on Friday. It's putting millions of Americans under financial stress. Now, the Democrat-led House is standing firm on striking a deal, saying that the chamber will forego its traditional August recess until a bill is passed. Here's what some of the negotiation leaders had to say yesterday.
Fact is that they're subjecting somebody who gets $600 to scrutiny that they won't subject some of the people who are getting millions of dollars in the PPP. So this is about putting workers first.
What I say to the people out there is, tell the Democrats, let's do a short-term deal. The 2 issues on evictions and on enhanced unemployment. We're prepared to do a deal for a couple of weeks while we negotiate. I can't speculate. As we've said before, we're very far apart on certain issues.
So we need a bold, strong solution. There are lots of things that we're still divided on, and we're not close to an agreement yet, but we are making progress, and I'm hopeful that we can get to an agreement.
All right, we're going to dig into this. We want to bring in Grace Segers. Grace, you're a CBS News political reporter to find out how things are going. People are desperate. And, we talked about the fact that one of the sticking points, and Mnuchin mentioned it, is this extended unemployment, this enhanced unemployment. The Democrats want to see it extended until, the need is not there anymore. But that's becoming a stumbling block. Why are the Democrats sort of sticking to their guns on this in particular? And why not entertain something short term or a modified version of this enhanced unemployment?
Well, Democrats believe that they really have the upper hand here because the House proposed and passed 10 weeks ago their own $3 trillion relief bill that addressed a multitude of issues, including this unemployment benefit extension. But the issue that we have here with Republicans is that a lot of Republicans don't believe that there should be an extra $600 per week. They believe that that is disincentivizing workers to return to work, and that therefore the proposal, the added benefit, should be a bit smaller. So in order for something to pass through the Senate, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, will probably need support from the Democrats, since he probably won't get support from a few Republicans. And in order to get support from the Democrats, that means that it has to be a proposal that Democrats would be willing to vote for. So they really do have the upper hand here in these negotiations, and they're really willing to press it for all that they have.
I want to ask you about some of the other issues. The Republicans are really concerned about putting in something that will protect businesses, litigation protection. But there are also other issues, money for schools, funding for state and local governments. A lot of local governments, their tax revenue has dropped substantially. Where do any of these issues stand at this point?
It's interesting because, as you mentioned, liability protection is really a priority for Majority Leader McConnell. So he has said that this is a red line for him. Meanwhile, Democrats say that state and local government funding is really important for them. So they're concerned that if they do just a temporary smaller deal that includes liability protections and maybe a few other things like the extension of the unemployment benefits, then maybe McConnell won't be willing to return back to the negotiating table because he will have gotten what he wants with the liability protection. So the Democrats are saying, we want all of it, because they're worried that if McConnell gets a little bit of what he wants, then he won't come back to talk about funding for state and local governments, for example.
And we've been talking about, negotiations between Democrats and Republicans or Congress and the White House. But and you sort of alluded to this, there's also kind of some major differences. There are some major differences within the Republican parties, that there is a group of Republicans in Congress that are very concerned about the amount of money that's already been spent. And with this pandemic not looking like it's coming to an end anytime soon, they're worried that spending could really get out of control.
Yes, that is a very serious concern for a lot of Republicans. They're saying we've already passed a $2 trillion relief bill, the CARES Act, earlier in spring. And if we pass anything more that has this kind of price tag, it could seriously damage the economy, which is already reeling. So that's the Republican point of view. Now, Democrats, as I said, have passed their own proposal, which was $3 trillion. So that would cost $3 trillion. And Republicans last Monday introduced their own bill that would cost $1 trillion. But we're seeing some Republicans saying even $1 trillion is too much, and they have a lot of concerns about it. So again, that's why McConnell is going to need the support of Democrats in order to pass whatever bill comes up. And that's why you see White House officials negotiating with Democrats right now, and not necessarily as much with Republicans.
I want to ask you about another piece of legislation that, there was a lot of attention and a lot of fanfare, and things seem to have fizzled out a little bit. So I'm talking about the police reform legislation. The House passed a really sort of comprehensive piece of legislation addressing the need for reform in policing across the country. Senate Republicans did something similar. We saw the president also sign something, and then suddenly we stopped talking about it. Where do all of these bills stand?
Well, unfortunately, we're seeing that we're very much in the same place that we were a month ago, in that the House had their own proposal that they passed. The Republicans in the Senate had their own proposal, which ended up being blocked by Democrats in the Senate. And the president signed his executive order, as you said, but unfortunately, they just haven't been able to come together and continue negotiating. Democrats say that the Republican proposal was just toothless, that didn't go far enough. And Republicans are denouncing Democrats for not even being willing to debate the issue. So unfortunately, we are seeing kind of a stalemate in this, and especially since it's been overshadowed in recent weeks by the continued economic turmoil that we're seeing. So unfortunately, I really don't think that we're going to see any continued negotiations on this, at least until we see another relief package for coronavirus.
Yeah. Grace, thank you so much for giving us some insight.
Thank you.